Hello and welcome to ESPN FC Live. My name is Mark Donaldson alongside Mark Ogden and Stevie Nicol. Today we're going to look at some of the transfer speculation currently doing the rounds in football. And we're going to try and have some early predictions and get Oggy and Stevie to see what's going to happen in the Premier League with our top six, no expense spared, with the graphics following Oggy's predictions. But we're going to start with the signings. And rather than start with the big names, Oggy, why don't we start with something that's just happened today? Danny Welbeck, who scored 14 goals last season for Brighton, turns 36 in November and strongly linked with a move to Chelsea. Sounds weird, but kind of makes sense, does it not?
Well, it makes sense on the basis that I think myself and Stevie and many others last year were talking about Chelsea's lack of experience. Now they need a bit more of that seasoned professional in the dressing room. And I think Danny Welbeck brings that. He brings reliable cover for João Pedro, and I guess reliable cover for Leon Delap, who, Leon Delap is still all about potential, isn't it? But he's not been very fit for the last 12 months. So Danny Welbeck is a guy that will be around the dressing room, will help, bring on Leon Delap, also be the guy that's kind of been around a little bit and knows how to handle the younger players in the squad, because, Xabi Alonso will need a bit of help in that. I think, Chelsea appointed Alonso in the first place was a good move. Alonso bringing in Morgan Rodgers is a good move too. But I just think adding someone like Welbeck, it shows you that Chelsea have kind of learnt the lessons a bit from having all those young players in the squad. They realise they need, somebody who's been around the block a little bit. And I think if you're losing Alejandro Garnacho and you're bringing in Danny Welbeck, that is 100% win, no matter what you say.
Stevie, you've played in teams as a youngster and lent on the experience of some of your teammates. You've played in teams as an experienced teammate and you've helped some of the youngsters. Does this make sense for you?
Oh, 100%. Aye. Yeah, it's a great move, and he's the perfect guy as well. And more, I guess at the end of the day, the first thing that Danny Welbeck has to do is be able to perform on the field, and we know he can do that. So that box is ticked. But then probably more for Alonso is what Oggy was talking about that maturity around the dressing room, on the field. I mean, just in general. Obviously he'd been looking for a player like that. He tried to sign Granit Xhaka for that very same reason, and he's probably signed a similar player in the same sort of mould in terms of maturity and experience and the way he would gel players together, signing Danny Welbeck. So I think all round it's a win-win-win for Chelsea, and I agree 100% with Oggy. It's time they learned their lesson. It's taken them long enough, but it seems as though eventually the penny's dropped.
Yeah, comments made in April by the ownership talking about how they might need to tweak the way that when they buy players, they're buying talented youngsters, but they do still need that little bit of experience. Just for context, for Welbeck, he signed a 12-month extension at Brighton to take him till the end of this coming season. That was back in March, so I doubt a deal would be too difficult to do. Stevie, I want to stick with you. I want to talk Liverpool. Bradley Barcola could be the answer to who's going to replace Mohamed Salah, but it's a lot of money if that deal was to go through. What have you made of Liverpool's supposed interest in Barcola?
Well, I'm glad that they've got interest in Barcola. There's no question he's a player. He's exciting. I think he would fit into he certainly would have fitted in the mould of previous Liverpool managers, and no question he'll fit in the same mould as Areola's. The problem is, they're looking for 145 million. I'm sorry, he's a really good player, but he hasn't done enough, in my opinion, to be touted for 145 million. Let's take the facts. The facts of the matter are Bradley Barcola hasn't been a regular starter in the PSG side. Now, yeah, it's a fantastic team, but he's generally been coming off the bench. I'd love to know. I mean, he's got 29 La Liga League One appearances last season. I'd love to know how many of them A, were off the bench, and B, when he was giving others a rest. So yes, listen, if Liverpool could sign Barcola, he's only going to get better, but not at 145 million. Not for me.
Okay, if we look at a comparison between Florian Wirtz and also Bradley Barcola in the Champions League last season, there was a lot of hype and a lot of money paid for Florian Wirtz, and probably didn't have the season he or Liverpool were hoping. Hopefully that will change over the next 12 months. Do you see much of a difference between the impact that these two players had last season?
I mean, first of all, they're totally different players, aren't they? I mean, Barcola comes off the wing and Wirtz is more happy in a number 10 role. And I just think Wirtz struggled to settle in and he didn't have a great World Cup. So this season's a massive season for Florian Wirtz. I think Bradley Barcola hasn't really got those questions to answer, but Barcola's playing in the best team in the world, isn't he? He's the best team we've probably seen for the last 10 years. So when he plays for PSG, he's playing in a team that's got everything that works. There's no question marks over there. I mean, look at the defenders he's got behind him. He's got Hakimi and he's got Nuno Mendes. He's just got this amazing kind of network of players around him. So that's why he's been successful. If you put Florian Wirtz in that team, it might have been a different story. But different players, different expectations, different quality around them. But I'm with Stevie on this. I think Barcola is a good player, but I think you've got to put that fee into half straight away, at least half it, and then you maybe got a realistic fee. But it's still a season right now, isn't it? There's so many people are away on holiday. Players are on holiday. Club, directors of football are just back off their holiday. I think agents are getting a little bit kind of twitchy. Stories are coming out of all sorts of players, all sorts of clubs, which when you look at them, they don't really pass the smell test. That's what I mean about being the silly season. It's like people want to get moves going, but there's not enough people around at the moment, club-wise, to get it done. I mean, and a lot of clubs will wait till the end of the window. So, there's no way that anyone's going to pay £145 million for Bradley Barcola, as good as he is, because they know that if he's available and if you wait, you could probably knock at least £50 million off that before the end of the window.
One of the issues, Stevie, about this from a Liverpool perspective, supply and demand. Teams know that Liverpool are trying to replace Mohamed Salah. So if I'm the agent or the club that's selling a supposed Liverpool target, I'm going to bump up the price as well. Does that mean that Liverpool should maybe be looking elsewhere rather than going for someone who's probably going to be overpriced?
Listen, at the end of the day, Liverpool have got themselves in a position where I don't think they're going to have any choice but to overpay for players. They need too many players, and so they are going to end up spending more money than they probably normally would or should. Does Barcola fall into that category? Well, as Oggy said, if it's half of that, then yes, that's what you're looking at. Maybe you add another 5 or 10 million on it, but that's the max. But even then, that would be maybe overpaying. So no, Liverpool are in a tough spot right now. They need half a dozen players. I mean, so they've got themselves in a position right now, the complete opposite, I would say, of last year, where they had money, they had the choice, they were going and getting who they wanted. This year, it's my goodness, they're scratching around, and I just hope they've got some players up the sleeve, because right now we're way too close to the start of the season, and Liverpool don't have enough players, in my opinion, right now.
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny how things change, isn't it? Because Liverpool's success under Jurgen Klopp was built on the fact that they signed players for way below, big fees. Mo Salah, Andy Robertson, all these players, Gino Wijnaldum, they found real bargains, and that was their success. That was the secret of their success. And we were all told that Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes are geniuses and they're the best people around. Well, maybe Jurgen Klopp was the genius, and he was the guy that got these players to perform. And the people that were credited with being geniuses aren't as good as they thought they were, because since Klopp has left, they found it a lot harder to bring in the players and make them successful. So Liverpool's success has been finding players £50 million mark, less than that, and they've gone away from that. So maybe they should revert back to that and find players who are going to grow and develop, rather than throw £145 million on Barcola, £116 million on Florian Wirtz last season was another one, £125 million on Isak. They can't keep spending all these massive fees. In many ways, it's kind of like the mistake that Man United made under Ed Woodward in the years after Alex Ferguson, just thinking that money can solve all the problems, and it can't. You have to be a bit smarter than that, and your recruitment has to be the best. Liverpool's recruitment was the best, but they kind of dropped back into the pack now in terms of what they're doing, and they're wasting lots of money. I mean, I think they have wasted a lot of money in terms of the last 12 months. So let's wait and see.
And that's their job.
Mm.
You shouldn't be getting a king's ransom for turning around and spending 140 million or something on Isak or Florian Wirtz. I mean, you and I could go and watch them and say, well, we need to sign him. Yeah. I mean, that surely is what the job is. Their job, surely by the end of last season, they should have had marked out players who were in the same sort of mould as your Manes and your Salahs. And I mean, listen, how many times are you going to sign a Salah? But at the same time, you should be sitting with a list of players that you have inquired about, have figured out, you've spoken to the manager. I mean, all of that stuff surely is what their job is. It certainly shouldn't be going around spending 100 million on somebody. Anybody should be able to spot a talent and spend that kind of money.
Well, they got their business done early a couple of years ago when Arne Slot was coming in. They still had a fair bit of business to do. Someone else that's done their business early this season, Manchester City, getting Elliot Anderson through the door. There's been a lot of recent speculation about Rodri and Real Madrid. In fact, Marca, the newspaper in Spain today, suggesting that Real Madrid has got the first offer for Rodri ready, Augie. The fact that Elliot Anderson has come into Manchester City, I'm sure for City fans, ideally, you'd want to see him alongside Rodri. What are you hearing as far as how much truth is in the speculation linking Rodri with a move to the Santiago Bernabeu?
Well, Rodri for maybe a couple of years now, certainly just before he did his knee injury, just before, 2 years ago, he wasn't kind of avoiding speculation linking him to Real Madrid. I think he ultimately wants to go back home at some point. I think he's had a good stint at City, 5-6 years. He's a Spanish guy, who wants to go home and see out his career in Spain. And I think if Real Madrid are on the table, then it would obviously be interesting. Now, at the minute, Rodri's got an injury. He's got a back problem which needs surgery, or certainly needs a lengthy time out of the game. So whether he stays at City or not, he's not going to be fit to start the season. So I think City are obviously making plans for life after Rodri. They've signed Anderson, like you say, and I think he's probably the long-term successor. But Rodri for me is a player that any club would miss, but because of his injury situation 2 years ago, he's not really been the same player that he was before that. He had a great World Cup, but let's be honest, the World Cup is a different level to the Champions League and Premier League. So I think if City are being cold and calculated about it, and that's what they are in the transfer market, if they can get a decent fee for Rodri from Real Madrid, they'll take it. He's got a year left on his contract, hasn't shown any indication of signing it yet. So for me, that is a deal that will happen, and I think it'll happen obviously before the window closes. But I think City are prepared to let him go because of the situation with bringing Anderson in. They're looking at Bouadi as well from Lille, the Morocco player. So City are planning ahead, and Rodri's indications are that he wants to go back to Spain. So I just don't see how he stays.
Sometimes, Stevie, transfers just make sense long term. Mark spoke about Bouadi, who was brilliant, an 18-year-old kid for Morocco at the World Cup. Elliot Anderson has just gone from strength to strength recently. Sometimes it's not just about the here and now, is it, with transfers? Rodri's just turned 30. He's spoken about his injury issues right now. Does this one just make sense to you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think if Real Madrid can get a not 100% fit Rodri, but somewhere close to it, then he 100% makes them better, big time. He's no question the type of player they've been looking for since Toni Kroos left. I mean, they just haven't been the same in the middle of the park since Kroos left them. And so Rodri absolutely fills that gap. And yeah, I think the pace of the Premier League is one of the reasons why he struggled to get back to full fitness, number one, and secondly, get back to the player that we know. And because of the World Cup, it's just it's a little slower, a little more calculated, a little more time than he's shown. And I think that's what will happen if indeed he goes to Real Madrid, which I expect him to do. If you're Manchester City and you can get some money for him, absolutely, I think you let him go. And everybody's a winner, really, I think.
Staying with Real Madrid, and one of the stranger bits of speculation over the past 48 hours, even stranger than Danny Welbeck going to Chelsea, was Vini Jr. and Arsenal's supposed link with him.
Rubbish.
This just doesn't smell. You were speaking about something that doesn't smell right earlier, Stevie. This has got a scent to it.
Not a chance. Why would and forget the money, right? Because the money's obviously a problem. Forget the money. If you can't get Vinny to work playing for Real Madrid, what chance have you got getting Vinny to work playing in the Premier League, playing for Arsenal? Not a chance. And Vinny's not going to be interested in going there and having to chase back and run around and do and close the ball and all the things that we've been talking about that he doesn't do at Real Madrid. Do you think for 1 second he wants to go to the Premier League and have to start doing that? Not a chance. I mean, I think this is absolute gobbledygook. There's no way he's going to go there. Just from a football point of view, I don't see any way possible that Vini goes to Arsenal. No.
Right, okay. We've got an issue here. Stevie sat on the fence there. Can you give us what you really think?
Well, I mean, I'm suspicious of it as well. And, you got to work out who benefits from the speculation. Well, as far as I'm aware, Vini Jr has the same representatives as Diamande, who's about to sign for Real Madrid from Leipzig. So obviously, this speculation helps both. It helps the Diamande deal get over the line. It helps, maybe Vini get a new contract, because if it looks like he's ready to leave, then Real might panic and think, oh, we better give him a new deal. And when it came out, this story, it was Arsenal are interested in Vini Jr. There's been no club-to-club contact, but they're ready to make an offer. Well, if there's no club-to-club contact, who is actually making this kind of story available to people? It's obviously people that are representing the player, who want something to accelerate. Now, for me, what they want to accelerate is contract talks to give him a massive new contract at Real Madrid. Now, he reportedly earns around £400,000 a week at Real. So bearing in mind his contract expires at the end of this season, when he can leave as a free agent, he could basically double his money if he waits until the summer. So you're talking about a player that he knows in 12 months' time, he could be commanding £800,000, even £1 million a week, because he'd be a free agent. So why would he surrender that to go to Arsenal, as Stevie says, to work a lot harder for similar money, maybe even the same money, less chance of winning the Champions League because Arsenal have never won it, Real Madrid win it all the time? Doesn't make sense. Now, obviously, Arsenal are not distancing themselves from this speculation, but for them it works as well, because it makes them look ambitious. It raises their profile to potential new signings that Arsenal want to sign Vini Jr. They must be worth a go. So it just doesn't stack up to me. Arsenal are not a club that spends a lot of money on big wages. Bukayo Saka is the highest earner, around £400,000 a week. That is a lot of money, but at the top echelon of the game, it's not. The top earners in the world are playing for PSG, they're playing for Man City, they're playing for Real Madrid. Arsenal are a team that are probably mid-ranking in terms of wages at the top level. So it makes no sense on any level, apart from the fact that Vini Jr.'s people might get his contract done quicker and they might get more money out of it. Arsenal get the reflected glow of being linked with Vini Jr., but he's not going to sign for Arsenal.
Apparently, your old club, Ayr United, Stevie, are keeping tabs on Erling Haaland just in case he becomes unsettled in Manchester. See, we've started a rumour.
Yeah, they've offered him a stadium to sign.
What about the rest of the 400? Pay him, giving him the stadium. Newcastle United's an interesting one, because Tonali's gone. Bruno Guimaraes to Arsenal. This is a kind of two-pronged one, Stevie, because where would Arsenal play Bruno Guimaraes? Brilliant footballer, but who would have to make way for him getting in? And Tonali and Guimaraes gone, if that happens, where does that leave Newcastle?
Well, I don't think the problem you have with Guimaraes is where do you play him, because you can play him any way you want, quite frankly. So that'll depend on the tactics, who stays, who goes. I mean, yeah, I don't believe the problem for Arsenal would be where does he play. It's who doesn't play, probably, as you said. But you can play him anyway. You can play him in front of back four. You can play him further forward. So yeah, I don't believe that's a problem. I think he'd be a good signing for Arsenal. But for Newcastle, absolute disaster. I mean, it seems like the rats are jumping off the ship. I mean, everybody seems to be leaving, and I know Newcastle have gone out and signed a lot of young guys, which we were talking earlier on about. The model should be your scouting department, your directors of football, bringing in younger players, but when you're bringing in too many at one time, which kind of seems to be the case, then you're going to rely on that, or you're going to rely on your more experienced guys. I mean, you've still got Harvey Barnes there, who probably would fill in for Gordon. You got Alanga on the other side, but for me, neither of those two are players that you can rely on for the season. You can play them for 3 or 4 games, give them a break, bring them on. It can be an impact off the bench. They're not for me bona fide week in, week out guys that you rely on if you want to get in to the Champions League, for example. So I don't know where this leaves Newcastle. I guess we have to wait and see what the young players that have signed do. But I think it's asking a lot to sign 3 or 4 young players, put them straight in the team, which they're probably going to have to do, and then think that you're going to be battling for top 4, top 6, whatever it is that you've decided you want to be. So Yeah, I think to answer your question, Guimaraes starts wherever Arteta wants him to, but for Newcastle, big question mark. What's going to happen with him this season?
Oggy?
Yeah, I mean, just on Guimaraes first, I think obviously they've lost Tonali as well. Tonali's gone to Tottenham, but for me, those stats kind of backed it up. Guimaraes is the player that Newcastle will really, really miss. He made Tonali the player that he became. You know, Guimaraes does all the hard work. He does box to box. He's the true midfielder in that Newcastle team. He's the one that can do anything, like Stevie says. You know, Tonali's a good player, but without the work rate and industry of Guimaraes, I'm not quite sure he's as good as people might think he is. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops at Tottenham in that midfield. But I think, you know, Newcastle, it's 5 years in October since the Saudi takeover, and everyone was saying that, you know, richest club in the world, ambitions to win the Champions League, the Premier League. I mean, the last 3 or 4 years, they've just been absolutely stuck with these new rules, these PSR rules. They've barely spent any money. In terms of, obviously, money that they've spent has been money that they brought in. So they haven't really gone out there and done what people expected them to do. And I don't think now they will. I think it seems like the Newcastle owners have kind of lost interest a little bit. They're just happy to let it plod along. They're not showing any kind of ambition in the sense of bringing people in. Because you think about who they've lost. They've lost Alexander Isak, Anthony Gordon. They're losing Guimaraes, they're losing Tonali. They've lost all of their big players. Had they kept those players, they would have been a title contender by now. But they can't keep the players because of the rules that they're having to adhere to. Aston Villa in the same situation. When you look at Man City and Chelsea, now Chelsea have obviously got issues with their kind of compliance. Man City, as we know, are under investigation for 115 charges. These two clubs keep spending and spending and spending, whereas Newcastle and Villa, they seem to be stuck in this loop of not being able to spend any money and losing their best players. Now, even Elliot Anderson, another player that Newcastle have lost. They had to sell him to Nottingham Forest maybe 2-3 years ago for a knockdown fee. Man City have now signed him for a big fee because they're taking advantage of Newcastle's ultimate inability to keep their players. So I do feel sorry for Newcastle and Villa because they're trying to be ambitious. They're getting into the Champions League, but they just can't keep the players. Whereas Chelsea and Man City continually spend money, it just leaves people scratching their heads. But that's the situation Newcastle are in. And I think that, you know, at least they're not in the situation they were under Mike Ashley where they're worried about the club surviving. But they're still not in a club that's chasing the biggest ambitions, biggest honours right now because the owners just haven't put the money in.
Can I suggest? Can I suggest that Villa and Newcastle get better lawyers?
Well, absolutely.
That seems to be the difference.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Spurs. And 12 months ago when we did a season preview, we didn't really know what to expect. Postecoglou gone, having just won the Europa League. Surely they'd be better than 17th. No, they weren't. They were 17th again, Stevie, and now they've got Roberto De Zerbi. Now they've spent 100 million on Tonali. They've spent 85 million on Mateus Fernandes. They've spent 52 million on Jean-Paul Van Hecke. Surely it's different this season, but what should be the target for Tottenham after these last 2 years?
Well, I think there's no question. Bringing De Zerbi in and the money they've spent, it's got at least top 6 written all over it. You know, they're not spending that type of money to survive. They're spending that type of money because they want to be back and competing with the big boys. And I would suggest that this is just a start. What you've seen over the summer, and I actually believe that that's probably going to be the case. You know, this Spurs team I think will be a completely different outfit. I mean, again, they don't have any European football, same as Chelsea and we saw how that helped Manchester United last year, not having any European football. So with the signings that Spurs have made, and particularly with De Zerbi, the way he will absolutely be on his players' backs, goading them, pushing them, I expect a completely different Spurs this season. I think they'll be transformed. And I think top 6 absolutely is available for them.
And Savinho is not just being linked recently, he's been linked for quite a while with Tottenham, Oggy. Manchester City, he's been a bit part player, hasn't he? He's been a squad player. He's clearly a talented individual. We've seen that when he's been out on loan. Does that one make sense, or should Spurs be looking at rather than more of a wide player, because they've got plenty, as we can see from this graphic, with Savinho and Matisse Tel, should they be looking at kind of someone that's going to bang the goals in to compete with the likes of Solanke and Richarlison?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm at Tottenham, I'd be, busting a gut to sign Savinho. He's basically Matisse Tel, isn't he? He's a player that has got ability in him, he's got a moment in him, but he's very inconsistent. And I think, why bring him in to add to what you've already got? And I think He's a player that would definitely be a 1 in 4 games, maybe 1 in 5. I just don't think he's got the consistency and the top level quality to make a difference at Tottenham. So if I was Tottenham, I'd save the money and look to invest it in, like you say, a striker or somebody that's got that ability. Obviously, we know that Mohamed Kudus should be fit to start the season as well. So Savinho makes no sense to me unless it's an agent deal that Spurs want to get over the line. But I don't know. I can't see any reason why Spurs would sign Savinho.